what data the COVID app actually is amassing on you. Now, we all kind of, well, a lot of us anyway, begrudgingly, I think, signed up for this thing. You know, the idea that, all right, if I want to go to the pub or I want to go to the restaurant or anywhere really, I have to tap in. So a condition of me having some freedoms back is that I have this app, right? Okay, fine. I did not consent to the idea that it might then want my national insurance number, log if there are any criminal convictions pending, which, let's be honest, people, it's only a matter of time, isn't it? Or all the other stuff, my ethnicity, or everything. I didn't sign up for a lot of this stuff. And there were some reports coming out this week that it might be doing it. Now, the NHS has denied this, but my argument is, if it's doing it and the NHS don't know about it, then who is doing it? Is the government doing it? Do we really need all this? Your views, people. 03444991000. Do you feel very, very wary of this test and trace COVID app? And on the line now is Phil Booth, coordinator at Med Confidential. Now, Phil, I believe that you understand, well, as far as you're concerned anyway, there's some dangerous misinformation doing the rounds here, and some of it may have come out of my mouth. What's going on?
Possibly. I think the Department of Health has done a very, very bad job, clearly, of explaining what's going on here, because the app in which or through which you access or can access a vaccine passport is not the COVID app that was issued that people have to tap into places and everything else. It's a separate app that existed before the pandemic, and it's called the NHS app, which is obviously a little bit confusing. So, that's the first.
Well, sorry, just so I'm clear on that then. So the COVID app, the test and trace app, that is just testing, well, it's just tracing you, basically, whereas the NHS app is the one that's storing all of your details.
So the NHS app is a separate app, and this is one which I think about 4 million people maybe have.
Right.
And this is an app through which you're able to access, if you verify yourself, you're able to access your medical records, which is why that app is one place where you can get your vaccination status, because you're obviously, when you have the vaccine, your GP record is updated, and that information is therefore accessible from that app.
But why does it have things like your criminal record on there and stuff like that? Why do we need
that? So that, I think, is another piece of misunderstanding or misinformation, which is that a website was published earlier in the week that had a privacy notice on it. That's a legal requirement when you do something like this. And the table that they used to say what pieces of information are collected or used for the certificate were in a sort of bunch of boxes, if you like, that had names of pieces of information by it, and those which were used had a little cross by it, and those which weren't didn't. And some people looked at that table and maybe didn't see the little crosses or misinterpreted it, and so thought that it was going to collect all these other things. But the information that the NHS is looking at for your vaccination is held in what is called the system of record. It is a single, official, canonical record, aside from your own GP record, of who has been vaccinated. It's not looking at other databases. Information about your national insurance number is over in DWP or something.
But is there not a risk of this getting hacked? You see, I mean, look, quite often you hear about these quite sizable data breaches. I mean, there's ransomware, there's all these nefarious people out there, some of them coming from North Korea, for example, who tend to hack into things like our NHS. I think it was last week, the Irish health service went down for a little bit because of something quite similar. If there are these apps out there that store, in my opinion, unnecessary levels of information about you, that can fall into the hands of anyone, can't it?
Yes, and this is why when we put our detailed submission, by the way, I should say we're highly critical of vaccine passports for domestic use. We don't believe the government has any choice about what other governments say they want for international travel, but we don't think we should have vaccine passports for domestic use. But you're absolutely right. One of the reasons why is if you put this vaccine passport on your phone, in order to see it or show it to a foreign official or what have you, when you arrive, you have to hand or show an unlocked phone to that foreign official. And that is something which we're already told not to sort of take a mobile phone that's got lots of personal logins and stuff on through borders, because that's actually quite risky in some instances. So what we would say, and what the government has done, is use a passport one. I don't know if people can see the video, but we actually got one. We have been testing this system. That's
yes,
what we
our
do.
YouTube viewers will now be able to see.
Yeah, so I won't obscure my face, but just to show a piece of paper, it's got what you might recognize, the QR code in the top corner. And it's just a piece of paper, which you can get by ringing the 119 number that is on the site. So, frankly, people shouldn't need to use an app for this. If you're going to go and travel abroad, ring up. It only takes 5 days to get the piece of paper sent through by the post. It can take up to 2 weeks to get verified on the app. Quite honestly, I just think this is a lot of confusion, quite a bit of misunderstanding, and an incredibly.
I would argue it's symptomatic, you see, Phil, and I think I would argue it's symptomatic. People read these things, and it's become very easy now for people to go, there's a test and trace app out there that is storing unnecessary levels of information on you that could be hacked or used for nefarious purposes. And you know what? The NHS don't even know about it, which means the government must be doing it, and we were right all along. They just want to control our lives. At the same time as well, there's a lot of misunderstanding that's doing the rounds 5 p.m. most days when Whitty takes the stand, in my opinion. We hear all about the idea that this new Indian variant might be 50% more transmissible. I'm yet to have the press conference where he tells us it isn't. I'm yet to have the press conference where he tells us that death rate in England is the lowest since records began, although I think the story there is that records only began in 2001, to be fair, which is a bit weird. But, I think there's a bit of misinformation, or it's easy for people now to misunderstand a lot of what is coming out of the medical professionals' mouths at this moment in time. Do you agree or not?
Well, for medical professionals, I think they actually make a good effort. We should be really, really, really clear here. The app is from a body called NHSX, which is not an NHS body.
But then again, there we go again, don't we? You know what I mean? It looks like the NHS, doesn't it?
It is the government hiding behind the brand of the NHS. So I agree with you. We're in an environment where there's a lot of misinformation, and we want the evidence actually to be provided. And I would hope that, DH would put someone up. I'm a campaigner. What am I doing on your show, having to explain the mistakes of the government, which have confused people in a pandemic? This is really actually quite appalling. And we've got things like people's GP histories being taken in a very short number of weeks now, which virtually no one knows anything about. So, we really do need to actually have a pause and some much more clearer communication.
Phil, thank you very much. Great stuff, that. Phil Booth, their coordinator at Med Confidential, talking about clearing up, I think, some of the things about this COVID app, the test and trace app, whether or not it actually is all storing this information that we're being led to believe that it is. He says it isn't. However, I think it's pretty clear, isn't it, that there's some underhand things going on when it comes to the government maybe storing some of your data. And I would always argue how safe or otherwise that data is once it's been stored and whether or not it's necessary. Do you feel like you need that kind of thing in your life?